Hey, welcome back everyone. It is me, Mr. 4K Upscaler. So we're gonna go ahead and check Crackdown 3 HDR on this video. This video will be encoded in HDR, so you will be able to see the HDR. And if your YouTube app supports HDR, you will be able to see this entire video in HDR. So let's talk about the HDR settings on this game, Crackdown 3. Well, what's the important thing about the HDR? I think this is really important for you guys to understand. You can't just simply put something on the game the last minute and compress it with HDR. You have to do some work on the game. You have to implement it properly. What do we mean by the implementation? We mean that information on that video game and that level has to be implemented properly, and I'll talk about that as we go through this game. Let's go through the HDR settings right now. Now, this is your paper white. Paper white, what do we mean by paper white? Paper white is your white digital levels, your peak brightness of your white bright digital levels. Now, depending on your TV, depending on what type of a panel you're using, this will vary. But if you want to have a balanced paper white, bright white digital levels, then you should leave it at 200. Why at 200? Because remember, the idea of HDR is to see every detail. The idea of HDR it's not to totally blind you by the brightness of the white bright digital levels. Then you are crushing the detail. You're not actually seeing the detail. So the idea of HDR is to give almost like a natural three-dimensional depth of picture, dynamic picture. That's why they call it dynamic range. So you can see more in depth in picture. That's where the word dynamic range comes. The reason they call it high dynamic range because it uses a high resolution and higher bits of color to achieve that. Okay, so leave it at 200. Leave the paper white at 200. And go back, and that's where it should be. The brightness should be at 63, honestly, and I think this is the reason because you might have some issues with the gamma in this game. The gamma issues has been addressed, but I don't think they have been fixed yet. So I would suggest for all the panels, for everything, leave it brightness 63. Alright, so let's jump into the game. Save the changes and let's go ahead. Let's do a solo campaign. Let's click on it and let's select our agent, and here we go. This video obviously is going to be in HDR. So if you have HDR on your YouTube app, you should be able to watch this. If you're watching this from a phone, from Samsung Note 9 or S10, S8, you can watch this in HDR in 1440p or even 1080p HDR, but I suggest that you watch this in 1440p HDR. Alright, still loading, so just give me a second. Here we go. And off we go. Hopefully off we go. I don't know what's going on with the loading time. I'm not sure. Here we go. And as you can see, for those of you who are watching this in HDR, you clearly can see exactly what I'm seeing. You see a very beautiful tone mapping here. Here, we're going to stop this car. We're going to go after it. Hold on. Wait. Forget it. Let me get into this car, and then let me go to that limo. I want to get that limo. I want to get to that limo, and I just want to show you just how bright and vibrant the HDR is here in this game. I don't know, the limo has disappeared for some reason. I can't find it, but doesn't matter. Here, we'll do it right here. This is a good example right here. You see how the light on the asphalt, it's being represented properly. But that's because you have a beautiful tone mapping being implemented here on the HDR, because you have a proper tone mapping information being implemented. Okay, that's how the HDR works the best, is when you have a proper tone mapping being implemented. If you don't have the proper tone mapping, then you're not gonna get that beautiful HDR representation. Okay, some are cheating. They use compression. They just put it in the HDR container. They actually use the SDR, but they put it in the HDR container and they compress it, and it looks even more butt ugly. This is why I'm not a huge fan of a compression. This is why in the Apple TV I tell people, turn off that HDR, use the match content, turn the match content on, and don't use that compression, because it's incorrect information that you're putting there, and therefore you're gonna have even worse picture quality. HDR needs to have a proper implementation and information. It kind of rhymes, doesn't it? Let's take this car. Let's go. You see those neon lights and it says stop. It's being properly implemented. Like every detail here looks its best. The way the light reflects right here on the streets, on the asphalt, the neon lights, all of this stuff, you will see it. The way that the neon light is vibrating, the way it's reflecting on the character, all of that stuff, you will see it on this video as you're watching this. But I highly recommend that you guys wait for the HDR. You know, please don't watch this video while it's still being processed on 360p or 480p. For the love of God, wait for the HDR. Come back like 6 hours or 7 hours and then watch this video. I wish that I could have YouTube do this faster, but I can't. You know, I have to wait, just like everybody else. I have to wait to implement their processing, because they have to process this whole video, you know, and this video has to be processed by them, and they have to process everything here, and it will take a while for them to process this video. And look at HDR right here. Here's a good example. Look at how beautiful the information is being implemented with dynamic light. See, that was what I'm talking about. See, like right here. That is what I'm talking about. There's no question. Everyone has tested it. Evil Boris has tested it. I have tested it. Other people have tested it. John Crow has tested it. There's no question. If you are skeptical about this game and whether or not you should showcase the HDR, this game will definitely do that. It will definitely showcase the HDR. It's going to look like a Tron. You know, it's going to have that light, like a nice Tron or Spider-Verse, Spider-Man verse kind of a look to it. What I'm trying to come across here, the point I'm trying to make here is, it's really important to give the game a proper information of HDR. And Vincent Theo spoke about this plenty of times. Evil Boris spoke about this plenty of times. John Crow spoke about this, friend of mine, plenty of times. Other people have spoke about this. This is why Red Dead Redemption 2, people bashed Red Dead Redemption 2 because it was like the last minute. They just compressed a HDR on there, and that's why they call it fake HDR, because they put the SDR in the HDR container without any proper tone mapping that requires the necessary elements for the HDR to look its best. Okay, same thing goes with the Anthem. That's why I call it fake HDR now, Anthem. EA needs to learn for Ubisoft. Ubisoft got it. They know how to properly implement it. Microsoft Game Studios, they know how to do it. Turn 10 Studios, Forza playground games. They know how to do it properly. These are the companies, they get it. They know how to do it properly. And hopefully we'll see more and more people and developers utilize this properly. What I mean by that, it's hopefully that these developers from Rockstar Games and EA, BioWare, they will learn on how to properly implement the HDR. And I don't understand why it's so difficult for them to properly implement that HDR. It really shouldn't be that big of a deal. If they hire a proper team to do it, then they will get that results. But let's be honest, I don't think Anthem, the BioWare really focused themselves on HDR. They were mainly focused on the servers and the graphics. I don't think they were focused on the HDR, and I don't think this is what developers need to do. They need to be honest with the gamers. They need to let the gamers know, hey, listen, we're not working on HDR currently, so we apologize about that. But that's something we could do with the updates in the future. You know, I think they should just be honest. That's what the gamers want. Gamers understand all of this takes time, but they want the honesty from developers. They want us to be honest with us and tell us, hey, this is the reason why we can implement it, and this is why we're having difficult time. If developers do that, if they are more honest about it, I think the gamers will understand. They'll say, okay, we get it, we understand. You can see, like right here, like the HDR, the way dynamic light is working right here with the HDR. This looks perfect. See that? That's the proper implementation of the HDR, because the dynamic light, it's reading that peak brightness and the paper white properly, because we got proper information implemented on this HDR. Same thing goes with the Ubisoft games. So alright, well, there you have it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video in HDR. Like I said, if you're still skeptical about the HDR in this game, hopefully this video will change your mind. I only can hope that it will do so. There you go. There you have it, fellas. Alright, well, thank you for watching. Make sure you check out my previous video that I did on HDR, The Division 2, and I'll see you guys soon. Have a good one, though. Enjoy your Saturday. Take care.